The sun has just slipped below the horizon here on Commercial Street, and it's bringing that distinct, heavy quiet of a Midwestern evening to Atchison, Kansas.
It really is a beautiful time of day.
Yeah, the daytime rattle and hum have totally faded out. So, it's really the perfect time of night for a story about a sleepy English village, a murdered saint, and a confessional booth containing a dead man holding a completely blank piece of paper.
It's quite the setup.
It is. Tonight, we are pulling back the floorboards on the source material of a brand new Father Brown mystery from Chesterton Radio. It's called The Confession No One Believed.
Which is just a fantastic title, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Now, if you are looking for a standard plot recap, you are in the wrong place tonight. We are assuming you've either read the story or, you're stepping into it with us right now.
Right. We're not going chapter by chapter here.
Exactly. Our mission tonight is to really explore the spiritual architecture of this mystery, to sort of understand the mechanics of why it feels so authentically Chestertonian, and to unpack those profound moral reversals at the very heart of the text.
It really is the ideal atmosphere for this kind of deep dive, too, because, the physical murder in this story is, in a lot of ways, completely secondary to the spiritual mystery.
Yeah, the murder almost feels like an afterthought.
It does. I mean, the central question isn't a mechanical one about who wielded a narrow blade in the dark. The true puzzle is why an innocent man spent 30 years of his life trying to repay a debt that absolutely no one else in the world believed even existed.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
Right. And to understand how that kind of narrative machinery operates, we really have to start by examining the fundamental epistemology of our detective.
Big word for a quiet night, but yes.
Fair enough. But Father Brown simply does not process reality the way a standard literary sleuth does. And the story deliberately highlights this by placing him right next to Inspector Valentine.
Yeah, right out of the gate, we get this incredibly stark contrast. We are in the village of Alderwick. It's the eve of the Feast of St. Benedict.
Setting the stage perfectly.
Exactly. Sir Edmund Vale, who is the town's greatest benefactor, basically a man everyone treats as a living saint, he's been murdered.
Yeah.
And Valentine, who totally represents the classic, competent, empirical police officer, he immediately starts doing exactly what we expect a detective to do.
Like tearing the room apart.
Literally.
Yeah.
He is in Sir Edmund's study. He's pulling out desk drawers. He's examining financial ledgers, tracking missing funds, establishing timelines. He's looking for, tied bundles of correspondence.
He wants the data.
Right. He is mapping out the how and the what. But Father Brown is just standing in the corner of the room, completely ignoring the safe and the paperwork.
Because he's looking at completely different things.
Yeah, he's staring at Sir Edmund's old, worn-out walking stick. He's examining this chipped earthenware mug kept on a side table. And he is thinking about the wild daisies he saw placed on a forgotten grave in the churchyard.
That scene right there is a masterclass in establishing the fundamental difference between Victorian empiricism and Chesterton's spiritual realism.
How do you mean?
Well, if you look at the history of the classic detective, let's take Sherlock Holmes as the ultimate archetype, right? Holmes is a materialist who solves puzzles.
Right.
He operates on the assumption that the universe is a closed system of cause and effect.
Yeah.
He collects physical debris, cigar ash, mud on a boot, train ticket stubs, the trajectory of a bullet.
The physical clue.
Exactly. And he synthesizes those material facts to catch a criminal. He wants to reconstruct a physical timeline to put a man in handcuffs.
Okay, yeah.
Father Brown, however, solves people. He isn't trying to reconstruct a timeline. He is trying to understand the shape of a person's soul. He looks at their habits, their loves, and their sins.
But wait, I get the poetry of looking at a chipped mug. But from a purely practical standpoint, Valentine is right, isn't he?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to solve.
But if there's a dead body in a church, examining the financials isn't just good police work. It's basically the only logical starting point. A murder is a physical crime. Isn't Father Brown just getting incredibly lucky that the motive happens to be spiritual this time?
I see what you're saying.
Like, if you ignore the ledgers, aren't you just being a bad detective?
It looks like bad police work only if you believe that human behavior is primarily driven by economics or logic.
Which I guess most police do.
Sure. And the text doesn't mock Valentine for it. Valentine is highly respected, and his factual rigor is totally necessary. But Father Brown operates on a much deeper psychological theorem.
Which is?
That human beings fundamentally do not kill over arithmetic. They kill over pride, they kill over fear, envy, and warped, twisted love.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You cannot find those pathologies in a bank ledger. A ledger only shows you the symptom, the missing money. It doesn't show you the disease.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, so Father Brown examines the worn bindings of Sir Edmund's devotional books because he's trying to diagnose the disease. He is looking for the actual ontological reality of the victim.
That distinction completely changes how we view the physical evidence.
Yeah.
Because the housekeeper, Mrs. Pike, she mentions that Sir Edmund was a man who saw souls where other people saw objects.
Exactly.
And that chipped mug is the perfect embodiment of that, because she explains that it belonged to a retired gardener who broke it and apologized profusely for a week.
He was so upset about it.
Yeah, and Sir Edmund painstakingly glued it back together and kept it on his table because he said cracked things had already learned humility.
And just notice the mechanics of what Chesterton is doing there. Inspector Valentine inspects objects to discover events. Father Brown inspects objects to discover philosophy.
Wow, yeah.
The mug isn't a clue to who was in the room. It's a clue to how Sir Edmund viewed brokenness.
Right. If Sir Edmund values humility and broken things, he is not the kind of man who would be killed out of typical financial greed or blackmail. He is a man who operates on the economy of grace.
Yes, and that specific focus on the internal reality of a person leads directly to the most baffling central paradox of the entire story. The blank piece of paper.
Oh, the paper.
So good.
Sir Edmund's body is sitting perfectly peacefully in the confessional, holding a folded piece of paper. Inspector Valentine naturally expects it to be a dying declaration, maybe a suicide note or a confession of some dark, terrible secret.
Because that's what you'd expect.
Right. He unfolds it, and it was completely blank. No invisible ink, no erased pencil marks, just a void.
That's unsettling.
It's like a completely silent track on a vinyl record. Suddenly, because there's no music, you just hear the hum of your own speakers and the ambient noise in your own room.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Well, the moment that blank page is discovered, it acts as a massive psychological Rorschach test for the entire village of Alderwick. Every single character immediately projects their own internal fears onto that empty space.
It is a brilliant narrative device because a vacuum of information forces human anxiety to fill the void.
Exactly.
The story uses that blank page to expose the village. Julian Creed, the cynical modern journalist, immediately assumes the paper originally held a scandalous criminal confession that was stolen by the murderer to cover their tracks.
Because he's a journalist?
Right, because Creed trades in scandal, he assumes everyone else does too.
Yeah.
And then Lady Beatrice, the proud aristocratic matriarch, she insists there was never a confession at all. She claims Sir Edmund was just holding blank paper by coincidence because she believes the Vale family is too honorable to have any secrets whatsoever.
He just refuses to engage with it.
Exactly. And Arthur Vale, the nephew, he is terrified the paper was going to change his inheritance.
What really strikes me is that everyone except Father Brown assumes the paper represents legal guilt.
Yes. They assume that because Sir Edmund was going to the confessional, he must have committed a literal crime. Specifically, something related to the massive embezzlement scandal at Vale & Company 30 years ago. Right. They tie it back to the money. They equate the confessional with a courtroom. But Father Brown separates legal guilt from moral guilt. Sir Edmund had zero legal guilt. He didn't steal a dime. Not a single dime. Yet he felt an immense, crushing moral debt. And this is where Chesterton's theological underpinnings shine through without ever becoming preachy.
Which is hard to pull off.
Very hard. But the sacrament of confession, in Father Brown's worldview, is not merely a place to recount broken laws. It is a place to align oneself with truth. The village assumes guilt, but Father Brown realizes Sir Edmund was trying to confess gratitude. Yeah. He was trying to confess that another man was better than himself.
When I went back and reread that scene, the psychological realism just blew me away.
It's so profound.
Father Brown says, we should first discover what sort of confession Sir Edmund intended. And the reason the page was blank wasn't because someone stole the writing. It was because Sir Edmund was preparing his heart, not drafting a speech.
Exactly.
He told his housekeeper earlier that evening, if I must choose between the right words and the truthful ones, I usually find the truthful ones at the last moment. The blank page was an act of extreme humility.
Consider the spiritual mechanics of that for a second. A murderer confesses to himself that he deserves to escape. A proud man confesses to himself that everyone else is foolish. But a saint confesses every day that he cannot save himself.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Sir Edmund's confession was the culmination of a 30-year burden of unearned grace. He was holding a blank page because the truth he needed to speak, that he owed his entire reputation to the sacrifice of another man, was too vast to be captured in ink. It was a matter of the soul, not the pen.
But let's look at the actual fallout of this gratitude.
Okay.
We're told gratitude is a virtue, right? A joyful thing.
Usually, yes.
But for Sir Edmund, this gratitude looks exactly like a crushing, morbid burden. It completely isolated him. He couldn't bear being praised by the village because he believed the praise belonged to someone else.
He hated the praise.
Right. It makes you wonder, can a person actually be spiritually damaged by believing they must earn their redemption, or by trying to carry a debt of grace that can never actually be repaid?
That is the tragedy at the center of his life, and it perfectly illustrates why Chesterton writes these stories. Carrying an unearned burden for 3 decades, even a burden born of profound gratitude, it calcifies a person.
It freezes them.
Yes. Grace is meant to be received, not repaid. By obsessing over how to repay Thomas Latch for taking the fall 30 years ago, Sir Edmund trapped himself in a cycle of moral indebtedness.
He couldn't move past it.
And just as that secret changed Sir Edmund, turning him into a solitary, melancholy saint, it also deeply changed the village of Alderwick.
It's like a moral financial bubble.
A bubble.
Yeah. The village invested 30 years of their emotional portfolio into this specific narrative. The narrative that Sir Edmund is the flawless hero who saved the town, and Thomas Latch is the ruined villain who embezzled the money.
Right, that's the narrative they bought into.
Over decades, they just kept buying into it, inflating it. And if Sir Edmund suddenly stands up in church and admits the truth that Latch was the hero and the Vales were at fault, the village's entire moral economy crashes.
That's a great way of putting it.
It brings us right into the idolatry of reputation.
Idolatry is the exact right word. The story explores how legends harden into dogma, reputations become idols, and historically, people will sacrifice human lives to appease their idols.
We see that all the time.
Look at Lady Beatrice. She is perfectly willing to sacrifice the truth to protect the family name. She explicitly tells Inspector Valentine, there is entirely too much forgiveness in this village. Forgiveness encourages unpleasant conversations.
I love that line.
It's so chilling, though. She prefers a clean lie to a messy truth. She wants the aesthetic of respectability, not the reality of redemption.
Father Brown has this incredibly sharp observation about this phenomenon. He says, there's a curious thing about reputations. It blurs people, but it sharpens legends.
He nails it.
The village completely forgot Thomas Latch, the actual human being. They just remembered the sharp outline of the villain. The only person who remembered the human being was Sir Edmund, secretly visiting Latch's neglected grave and leaving those wild daisies we mentioned earlier.
This touches on the sociological concept of scapegoating. A community often requires a scapegoat to maintain its own cohesion.
They keep everyone else feeling good.
Exactly. Thomas Latch served that purpose for Alderwick. By universally condemning him, the village could universally revere Sir Edmund, creating a stable, black-and-white social order. It is a lazy narrative.
A lazy narrative.
And when Father Brown calls it a lazy narrative, he means it lacks the complexity of real human fallenness.
But look at the actual fallout of Thomas Latch's noble sacrifice.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Because we're supposed to admire him for being this Christ-like figure, right? Taking the blame for a crime he didn't commit to save his friend from ruin.
That's how it's presented, initially.
But look at his son, Henry Latch. Henry is the village train station porter, living his entire life in bitter poverty because of his father's ruined name. He literally tells Father Brown, I wanted someone to blame.
Yeah, he's so angry.
Was Thomas's sacrifice actually just a selfish act of martyrdom that destroyed his own family's future so he could feel like a savior?
It's a vital question, and it explores the literary tradition of vicarious suffering. Think of Sidney Carton in A Tale of Two Cities, stepping up to the guillotine.
Right.
But Chesterton complicates it. He shows us the collateral damage. Thomas chose mercy for a friend, but that mercy casts a long, dark shadow over his own wife and son.
It ruined them.
Henry Latch carries the generational trauma of that choice. He shows Father Brown his father's pocket watch, which his mother refused to wind after Thomas died. It stopped at 4:23. Time literally froze for that family in their grief and disgrace.
The stopwatch is such a brilliant mechanism for showing how unresolved trauma traps people. Thomas's act of mercy saved one family, but exiled his own. And that is exactly why Sir Edmund couldn't take it anymore.
He saw the damage.
He saw Henry watering geraniums at the train station instead of living the life he should have had.
Yeah.
Sir Edmund realized his noble lie was destroying an innocent man's life, so he finally decided to break the silence.
And the tragic irony of the narrative is that his attempt to finally heal that collateral damage, to drag the truth into the light, is exactly what triggered his murder.
Yeah.
He was killed by someone who was absolutely terrified of the light. Which brings us to the profound moral climax of the story, the confrontation with Dr. Lionel Marsh.
The pivot here is staggering. We shift entirely from who committed the crime to who truly needs forgiveness.
It flips the whole mystery on its head.
Dr. Marsh killed Sir Edmund. But the motive is where the genius lies. Dr. Marsh's father was the actual embezzler 30 years ago. Thomas Latch took the fall to save Marsh's father.
Right.
Dr. Marsh found this out, and he thought Sir Edmund was taking that blank piece of paper to the confessional to publicly expose the Marsh family and clear the Latch name.
And here is the devastating, quiet moral reversal that Chesterton is famous for. Sir Edmund didn't even know Dr. Marsh's father was the culprit.
That part is just mind-blowing.
Sir Edmund thought he himself was the one Thomas Latch took the fall for because Sir Edmund had made some foolish, naive business errors as a young man that he assumed caused the financial collapse.
He thought it was his fault all along.
Yes. So Edmund was going to the confessional to accuse himself. Dr. Marsh committed murder to stop a confession that was never actually going to accuse his family in the first place.
I didn't catch that the first time I read it, but there is this incredibly subtle physical tell from Dr. Marsh earlier in the story that sets this all up.
Oh, the scene with Mrs. Pike.
Yes. When Mrs. Pike is describing the moment 30 years ago, when Thomas Latch put a reassuring hand on young Sir Edmund's shoulder in the office, Dr. Marsh closes his eyes.
Such a great detail.
He is remembering a scene he never even witnessed. He is remembering a story his guilty father told him. A scene that has haunted the Marsh family like a ghost for 3 decades.
That physical tell reveals the deep mechanics of inherited shame. Dr. Marsh has lived his entire life in the shadow of an unearned mercy.
Right.
His father received life-saving grace from Thomas Latch, but instead of being liberated by that grace, his father was crushed by it. He lived in terror of being found out, and Dr. Marsh absorbed that terror.
He took it all on.
He internalized the shame and weaponized it into violence. He tried to kill the truth to protect a lie because he misunderstood the nature of mercy entirely. He believed the truth could only exist to condemn him.
I think the terrifying thing about true grace is the total loss of control. Well, if Dr. Marsh accepts forgiveness, he has to admit his father was weak and guilty. He has to abandon the illusion that his family is self-sufficient and respectable. It's like someone boarding up the windows of a burning house to keep the smoke out, only to trap the fire inside.
That is a very vivid image, but it's accurate.
Or like an immune system attacking a life-saving organ transplant because it doesn't recognize it. Dr. Marsh's spiritual immune system attacked the mercy because it felt foreign and dangerous.
Yes.
He'd rather wear the heavy, suffocating armor of a fake reputation than stand vulnerable in the light of true grace. Is that what Chesterton is getting at here? Why are human beings so terrified of being forgiven?
Precisely. Dr. Marsh explicitly says, I could bear almost anything except hearing my father's name spoken with contempt. He valued the aesthetic of respectability over the reality of redemption.
It's heartbreaking.
And look at how Father Brown handles him in the climax. They are in the empty church. Father Brown doesn't confront him with handcuffs or righteous fury or a triumphant detective's monologue. He confronts him with deep, sorrowful pity.
The dialogue in that confrontation is just haunting. Dr. Marsh recalls his final, desperate conversation with Sir Edmund in the confessional, where he begged Edmund not to speak.
Yeah.
And Edmund replied, "A wound cannot heal while the knife remains inside it."
Such a powerful line.
And then Dr. Marsh looks at Father Brown and says, "I'd carried the knife for 30 years.
Oh, that just gets you right in the chest.
The psychological realism there gives me chills. He was bleeding out from a spiritual wound for 3 decades, and he thought the only way to survive was to stab someone else.
It is the delicate, masterful handling of these theological concepts, grace, sin, repentance, and shame, that elevates this text far beyond a simple whodunit.
Way beyond.
Chesterton utilizes Catholic thought, but it never feels like a sermon. It works purely on the level of universal human truth. You don't have to be Catholic or even religious at all to feel the crushing weight of Dr. Marsh's misplaced shame. The mechanics of the mystery rely entirely on the human condition.
And that ties perfectly into the literary atmosphere Chesterton Radio has captured here. Let's talk about how the setting of Alderwick itself operates as a character.
The atmosphere is fantastic.
The pacing, the environmental details, it's thick enough to cut with a knife. The village functions almost as a Greek chorus, reacting to the moral state of the characters.
Chesterton frequently uses the pathetic fallacy, attributing human emotion to the natural world to heighten the spiritual stakes.
Right.
When the church bells fail to ring on the morning of the murder, the text notes that villagers can endure disaster more easily than irregularity.
They need that routine.
A missed bell is terrifying to them because it suggests a failure of the human order they rely on. And then there is the patient English rain that washes over the village just before the climax.
Oh, the rain scene.
The text describes it making the old gravestones look as though they had finally agreed to forgive one another. The meteorology reflects the theology.
Yes. The imagery doesn't just set a mood. It explains the characters. There's that scene where Father Brown is sitting in the garden with Inspector Valentine, just quietly watching apples fall from a tree.
I love that part.
Valentine is impatient, asking what on earth he's doing, staring at fruit when there's a murderer on the loose. And Father Brown just softly says, they spend most of their lives wondering when to let go.
It's brilliant.
It's a brilliant metaphor, using the physical setting to mirror the internal state of every major character in the story.
It perfectly maps onto the psychological burdens we've been discussing. Dr. Marsh couldn't let go of his father's shame. Sir Edmund couldn't let go of his profound gratitude. Henry Latch couldn't let go of his generational bitterness. Lady Beatrice couldn't let go of her family pride.
They were all just holding on so tight.
They were all clinging to the branch, terrified of the fall, not realizing that letting go is the only way to reach the ground and actually plant something new.
It makes me think about how we operate in the modern world.
Oh, for sure.
We are living in an age of hyper-technology, constant digital distraction, and deep, pervasive cynicism. Look at Julian Creed, the journalist in the story.
The ultimate cynic.
He is the absolute perfect stand-in for modern internet culture. He is obsessed with exposing people, with tearing down reputations for clicks and engagement.
Yep.
He assumes Sir Edmund's confession was a scandalous, horrific crime, because scandal is the only currency he understands. He cannot even fathom the concept of confessing humility. Does a story like this prove that true justice requires silence and patience? Things our modern world has completely lost the capacity for.
Creed represents the modern demand for immediate categorized outrage. We want explanations before we even understand the events, but Father Brown offers the exact antidote to that modern cynicism.
Which is patience.
Yes. He proves that truth and mercy are not enemies, but they require time to reconcile. He waits. He observes. He lets the silence do the work. He explicitly tells Inspector Valentine that explanations are sometimes proud things because they often arrive before the truth does.
We spend our lives terrified of the judgment that God delays, and we completely forget the forgiveness He hastens.
Wow, yes.
That realization completely challenges how we operate day to day. We build these massive, elaborate fortifications around our egos, our careers, our online personas, and our reputations.
We armor ourselves.
And here comes this unassuming little priest in a battered hat, looking at all our armor and basically saying, you can put it down, the war is over, you're already forgiven.
And that is exactly why readers continue to return to Father Brown more than a century after Chesterton first created him, and why original stories like this remain so vital.
We really are starved for it.
We are starved for that kind of patient, merciful wisdom. We want a detective who looks at a murderer and sees a broken, bleeding soul in desperate need of healing, rather than just a monster to be locked away in a cell. The mystery format is just the vehicle. The destination is always redemption.
If there's one final thought you should take away and mull over tonight, it is the paradox of that blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
The most powerful, world-altering words spoken in this entire mystery were the ones that were never written down. It challenges each of us to look at our own lives and ask, whose reputation might we be unfairly guarding?
What unearned grace might we be hiding from out of pride?
Exactly. Where are we boarding up the windows of our own souls out of fear when we should be letting the light in?
Those are the questions that linger long after the cover of the book is closed or the audio fades out. It is the kind of quiet introspection that only a truly great story can provoke.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want you to imagine those lights still glowing warmly in the station window here on Commercial Street. The microphones are slowly cooling down in the quiet studio. The Midwestern night is settling in. But the promise of another thoughtful conversation is waiting right here for you tomorrow.
It really is something to look forward to.
If you want to experience this incredible story for yourself or dive into additional original Father Brown mysteries, classic radio dramas, literary conversations, and daily morning prayer. You can find all of it waiting for you at Chesterton Radio.
It is a phenomenal community, well worth joining for anyone who believes that old stories, deep truths, and quiet contemplation still matter in a noisy world.
Some mysteries end when the detective discovers the truth. The best Father Brown mysteries begin there.